but today I want to talk about the golden age of Neopets and how ultimately Scientology ruined it. Scientology was the catalyst to its demise. Neopets began in 1999, and it has two founders, Adam and Donna, who later got married after they left Neopets, but at the time, they were like in university. They're British. He had Adam had the idea to make a website where you cared for virtual pets because he's like, we like our real life pets, and so we want to guilt people into coming back to our website. And so you'll love pets. So we'll make pets, and then they'll get hungry, and then they'll get mad at you if you don't feed them. So you have to keep coming back. So like, okay, cool. And so he was the one who programmed it, and it's 1999. So he just like taught himself everything, and that's why the website was so jank. And so then he roped Donna into it, and she didn't want to do it, but she was like, okay, finally, whatever. And so she did creative development and marketing, and she was the one who drew all the pictures. But the thing is, she didn't know how to draw. So she was really bad at it. And at first, they just like did it for the fuck of it, and like they didn't care about like copyrights, and they didn't care about anything else. They just wanted to make something that was fun for them. And so it was just a passion project, and Adam was like, well, we could maybe make money off of banner ad revenue, but like whatever. He actually dropped out of college to like make banner ads for his dad's website, and his dad was just like a pipe salesman or some shit. He was real dull. He was like, I kind of know how banner ads work in the year 1999, whatever. And so at this point in time, they had total control over the website, which is important because they don't have that for a long time. And so they'd be like, isn't this funny? Let's just like put this on the website, whatever. And so, everyone loved them. Everyone on the website loved Adam and Donna. They were like kind of god figures, I guess you could say. It was awesome. Everyone loved Neopets. Within a month, 1 month of its launch, the page had 60,000 page views per day, solely through word of mouth. They didn't do any advertising. And this is in 1999.
That's buck wild.
Isn't that buck fucking wild? It's just, people felt guilty about their poorly drawn pets starving. And so they kept coming back, and then they told their friends to come and do this. And so they launched Neopets in like end of September, early November 99. And then by December, like a fucking month into it, this guy, Doug Doering, which I always say in my mind, Doug Dimmadome, he bought the site as an investor and then founded like Neopets Incorporated. And so he's like, okay, I can see this making a lot of money, so I'm just going to fund this. And he was hands off for a while. They made the headquarters from wherever they were in the UK to Los Angeles, and eventually Adam and Donna moved out there. Everyone loved it. It was able to turn a profit 4 months after its launch.
What the fuck?
Right. And this was at the time only using banner ads, I believe. And then by July 2001, not even a year after its launch, it was the 4th stickiest website, which means that not only do people visit it, but they spend a lot of time on it. They're not just like scrolling through, but it gets them.
Yeah, you said sticky a couple times. I was like, I don't know what that means.
It means it gets them.
It gets them.
So let me now get into the Neopets lore. In the world of Neopets, the planet's called Neopia. So it was a barren planet devoid of life. There was nothing on it. And then this guy, Dr. Frank Sloth, discovered the planet, and he used it to like breed genetically altered mutants, which eventually became Neopets. He was like making these mutants. He lived on like a planet called Virtue Pets, kind of off of Neopia. And that's just like where he hung out. He's like, I'm just going to breed stuff here. And then magic just kind of happened one day, I guess. I don't know. That's unclear.
As
so
it does.
Mutants, I don't know, mutated some more, and now they're Neopets. So he kind of created Neopets, but he's just like a super villain that lives on a planet outside of Neopia. And so then there's fairies. Oh shit. And so they're like benevolent forces who also did not historically live in Neopia, like the planet itself. They do now, which is bullshit. But they originally lived in Fairyland, which was like the clouds above Neopia. So they were like, okay, we're here now. We're gonna make Fairyland. We're gonna help out these Neopets so they can like, I don't know, function as a society. And then there was this big period of like discovering the lands through site events. And so every world, I got really deep into the lore of each and every world of Neopets, of like Tyrannia and like Virtue Pets and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot in the weeds of like why each place actually existed. It only kind of makes sense. It actually doesn't really make sense. Like Tyrannia, for example, is like the prehistoric one, and how that one plays out is like they just were, underground for a long time, and so they never evolved, and then one day the world existed and they're still prehistoric, I guess. Or Terror Mountain, which is like the snowy ice mountain. They were like, okay, a bunch of like penguins, which are called Bruces, live there, but also like this scarab or whatever is coming, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta freeze ourselves now for like a billion years. And then the guy's like, the scarab's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the desert and like be buried alive, I guess. And then the penguins are like, fuck yeah, we can like come out of hiding. Like each land has its own like weird kind of stupid backstory, but so that's the history of like its lore and also its founding. But like, the fuck you do everything. There is so much you can do, and that's why it was such a good website. Okay, so let's start with its economics. So the currency of Neopets is the Neopoint, and you can earn Neopoints through different means. So the most straightforward way is you do it by playing games, and so they have a bunch of flash games, and you can send your scores 3 times per day. But you don't make a lot of money. You make like shit money doing that. But that's like kind of how you get started. But also you can sell stuff. So you can do it in your shop or the trading post, and you can set your own prices, and then you can get money that way. You can accrue interest in the National Neopian Bank. This guy's the banker. And then, you have money in there, and it kind of works like a real bank where like the more money you have, the higher interest rates you get. But I think the biggest way that you can really make Neopoints was the Neopian stock market, which actually operated like the real stock market. That's normally what I did. That's what the hardcore players did. They played the stock market and they would make millions and lose millions. The economics of Neopets nowadays is so inflated and it's so broken. Like, it's very discouraging to new accounts because they can't get enough money to like do anything because everything's so inflated. There was actually this very interesting like article about the inflation of Neopoint. So another thing that people can do is have collections. And I feel like that's what a lot of like the older, more hardcore people would do, is they would collect stuff. So you could do secret avatars, you could do stamps, Neodeck cards, which I think those might have been those real cards we saw. I never really got into them. And then there's like random stuff that you can put in your gallery or whatever. Me personally, I did avatars, and so you could earn them through, like playing a game and getting a certain score, or you could do it through like having a certain amount of Neopoints in your like possession while you visit the About Us page, whatever's the same amount as the price of asparagus. Adam loves asparagus. And there's just like a bunch of random ways to like do this.
It just seems like a really arbitrary combination of things.
Yeah. And so like, how do you even keep track of this? And so, which I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about this later, but there were like sites to track how to do stuff on Neopets, like get avatars and stamps and shit. So you can collect. You could also play games. You can play games to earn Neopoints, but like if you're really playing the game seriously, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for to get on the leaderboards. You could do it to earn a trophy for your user lookup, like you can see here. You can maybe earn an avatar through doing that, but I mean, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the next level shit. So some people were into that. The battledom. I didn't really get into this, but like some people liked having dog fights with their Neopets. And so you could fight either like other Neopets or just like CPUs. And so your Neopet got stronger either by winning or by, snorting a bunch of potions that you get from fairies, and then you like up your stats that way. I didn't care about that. You could get avatars for that. You get stuff on your user lookup. People just like the dog fights, I guess. There was Punching Bag Bob. who like was impossible to kill. Like everything you did to him was only like 1 point of damage, and he had like 5,000 hit points. But it's just like try out new things. But some people were like, I have to beat him. And then like Adam and Donna are like, don't beat him. Like you don't have to. There's nothing you need to prove. So okay, so other people were really into the Neopian Times, which was the weekly newsletter, the newspaper. And so like it had articles, short stories, comics, episodical stories, and questions to TNT is short for the Neopets team, or like the staff. And so that was all user generated content. The only thing that wasn't was the editorials, which is where people send in questions and then some staff member would be like, okay, here's the answer to this. They were mostly bad. I mean, they're written by children. You know, the comics were bad and they kind of looked like furries. But yeah, I mean, that was a way for people to express themselves. And it used to be edited by Donna. That used to be like her baby. Okay, and then there were also spotlights that some people were really into. And so this was for the creative types that weren't necessarily into making comics or writing. And so basically they would like write or draw something cool, or like have a cool gallery or Neo home or user lookup, whatever, and it'd be featured on the homepage. I think they'd also get a trophy for it, but like they would make their own, they would code in HTML because, you know, it's the early aughts, and like this was a Flash based HTML website that never upgraded. And so they were like, hey, you want to code shit? Whatever, here's the tools to do it. And so people got really into that. And so they would like, you know, either draw something, you know, create this, and if it was cool enough, it'd be featured on the homepage. And that was like something people were really into. So community was also a big thing. Like now the boards are dead and it's very sad to look at. But back in its heyday, they were popping. And so the Neo boards was where it was at. You had to be 13 to use it, but also you could just like create an account that said you were older than you were. So like, you know,
you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like there was a bunch of different forum topics that you can get into, like if you were really into like Neo homes, that you could talk about that, or like newbies was like general, or I was always in like the one for avatars, or you know there was one for like creative writing or whatever, a ton of it. And so like you see here, that's kind of like what it looked like. And you could, you know, going along with like the prestige of like the avatars, then you would have like a font that went with it that you would code yourself in HTML. And like that was also very prestigious on the boards. This first one, actually, the avatar is called Suap, and it's really hard to get. You have to have a chia, which was a type of pet, and it had to be painted P. So it looked like a P, and you had to have something else in your inventory and like jump through these hoops, and then you'd get the Suap avatar, and that was like one of the top tier. There was also guilds. They were pretty lame. I mean, like who the fuck wanted to be in a guild? Like it was like a private board for you and your guild members, but like that sucked, you know. I kind of touched on it, but it also like really let you get into HTML. So this was like a user lookup that someone just like made. You know, they just like coded this, and they're like, you know, I now know HTML because of neopets.com. And so you could do it on your user lookup, the guild page, the pet quick reference, and then the pet homepage. So basically you have a pet, and then when you click on it, there's like a pet preview, and you could code that, but then your pet had its own page, and that's basically like a free-for-all. You could do whatever on it.
Oh, yeah.
So some people, you know, made really elaborate things. There was a lot of like how-tos, like how to code this, how to get that. They had, some people would make like pet trading sheets or whatever. So like, you know, if you're like trading a pet around to get a certain avatar, you know, you sign up for it, and it's like you just could do anything. It was so versatile.
Forget the MySpace.
Yeah. This predates MySpace.
Yeah, it does. Shit.
Yeah, the Siggy, that was on the Neo boards one. Those were called Siggies. Cool pets. Okay, so you could have 4 Neopets, and some of them were rare, and so they were only released on their special day. Like Poogles and Psy Bunnies were like really rare. Drakes were really rare, and so they were like more desirable. And also you could change their colors with paintbrushes. So these are all fairies, which was like one of the most expensive paintbrushes. So that was like something that people wanted to do, was to get paintbrushes so they could have like this elite pet, you know. You could also change your pet with the lab ray. So basically you like you get this map. So there's like 9 pieces to this map and you have to track down all its pieces, and when you put it together, you could like zap your pet once a day and it could maybe change change species or color or gender or stats or whatever. It's just like you put it in a blender and you're like, what comes out, you know. It was a very chaotic way to like deal with your pets. So fan sites. So when we were talking about all the arbitrary ways to get avatars, so there were like fan sites made to help you keep track of your dailies. So that was like things that you would do every day, you know, to like rack up your points, whatever. They had a bunch of guides on how to earn like avatars, how to complete quests. That was a big one. So the quests are basically like how you discovered new lands, but you know, some of them you could do like retroactively and you would still like earn the prizes or whatever. So at least back in the day, there was Jelly Neo, there was Sunny Neo, and the Daily Neopets. I probably had accounts on all 3 of them. And so that basically was just like a side website so you could keep track of all your shit on Neopets. Because it was so intense of what you could do. Okay, so what happened? It was cool, it was great, it was awesome, everyone loved it. The fuck happened? Oops, Scientology. This man is Doug Doering, and he was a part of the first group of investors, and whoops, they were Scientologists, all of them. And they didn't know that at the time. And actually, he had a pretty hands-off, you know, approach to Neopets for like its first couple years. You know, he's like, you guys do whatever, I'll just give you the money, until one day he's like, I'm ready. Like, it's my time. And once he like started actually like doing stuff for Neopets, he was the CEO at the time, and he used the org board business model, which was, you know, discovered by L. Ron Hubbard. And apparently, according to like Scientology lore or whatever, this was a business model that was used by society 80,000 years ago. Set up, you know, where there's like different departments like communications and like, you know, management, whatever. And that's not too weird. There's a narc department where like your employees just like spy on your coworkers and like like narc on them if they're like doing something they shouldn't be doing, which is basically like doing anything that was against the company's mission, and the mission was to make money. So like they had like this primitive eye for eye punishment. So if you do something, they could basically like do something bad to you. They could like fire you. They could punish you in that way. Like, it was real bizarre. Like, everyone who interviewed for Neopets did have to take the Scientology personality test.
God.
And at one point, so this was mostly behind the scenes. Like, it never actually made it on the site, but it made like the framework behind it like really messy and like awful, and they had to fight a lot. And at one point, they hired this lady who was like, let's put Scientology on the site. And Adam Donner like, no, what the fuck? But they actually didn't realize until like several months after, like, you know, the gear started turning, and they're like, maybe we should Google this guy who invested in us. So a part of its like downfall was
Oh, this
a
does
part
look
of,
like furry art.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Neopets and like Doug Doring invented immersive advertising. It did not exist before Neopets. And so what that is advertisements were blended into the content of the website, so kids couldn't tell what was a game and what was an ad. You know, instead of a banner ad that was like very clearly separated from the content, it was integrated. Like, you see here on the map, there's the McDonald's shop you go to, there's Zazzle t-shirts, there's the Disney theater up there, was like a cereal center, but it's also next to like the Catatory or like the pet shop or the Money Tree. You know, it was like blended in. And then you see here, there's like, the Neopets are all hanging out grabbing cokes. And so that was a new concept at the time, where they just like blended it together. It made the company a ton of money, but like a lot of people question the ethics of marketing to children like that, because they're like, okay, well, they can't really tell what's an ad, what's not. You know, they'll want to go drink Coke because their favorite pet is like drinking it or whatever. And some people criticize it. They're like, you're just training kids to be consumerists.
This is the
What
first time we did
if they marketed the pharmacy to children? That seems like, I noticed the pharmacy on that map is not branded. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity.
like in games and in like television and stuff like that. Like,
Well, immersive advertising doesn't exist in television because you have to actually like interact with it. And so this was specifically with games. If you think of what came after, I think of like Millsberry.com, which was like, you know, Millsberry cereal, but you like play as like, you know, as a person, and then you could play games with like the Tricks Rabbit or whatever. And that was like very obvious immersive advertising, but you kind of knew it because you're going to like fucking Millsberry.com. But this was sneaky. Like this, I mean, again, the internet was new, you know, video games. It wasn't, you know, like Chex Quest, you know, that's very obvious. Like, you know, you're playing a game for Chex, but this is not. This is like you're on Neopets and then you're at the McDonald's shop. It was like that blurriness was like ethically questionable, and it had not been done that way before because, you know, McDonald's would pay them and they're like, okay, we'll just like add this on the site or whatever. In 2005, it was sold to Viacom. So Neopets was sold to Viacom, which is owned by MTV. They also had, or I guess Viacom owns MTV, and they also own Nickelodeon. So at this point in time, you know, 6 years into it, Adam and Donna still work for Neopets. They're in LA now. They had absolutely zero control over the future of the company. They were basically employees. They weren't like founders. They weren't like CEOs. You know, they had no power. And so the company was sold to Viacom without their consultation. And so at this point, Viacom overhauled the homepage and site design. So the one that was a couple pages ago, they revamped it to look like that, a lot more ads. They promoted Neopets on Nickelodeon.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, so that was because of this. Basically, Viacom was like, we can make so much money out of owning Neopets. So we're going to buy it for a shit ton of money. And we're basically just going to like pillage it for all the money we can. And so that's when it really turned into like, it sullied the true spirit of Neopets. So they overhauled the pet designs. You know, it used to be like unique art, but they put them all into like a mold, like a certain shape where it's all kind of similar, because they launched the NC Mall, which was Neocash, which was basically like a bunch of microtransactions. You purchase Neocash with real money and you use that like Neocash to buy like shirts and pants and shit for your pets, and you could dress them up, which, you know, kind of defeated the purpose of having paintbrushes, which was a big part of the Neopets economy. You wanted to get these paintbrushes so your pet looks different. But now if you pay money, you could like buy a fancy shirt and a background and shit, and then you could dress it up and it doesn't even matter. And also the conversion between like real world, like American dollars to Neocash was like a really low. Like if you spend like $50 on like Neocash, you can get like 2 items. Like, you know, it was awful. And so, you know, it's 2008. Adam, Donna are like, you know, this sucks. You know, it's not our project anymore. We hate all this and everything. Oh, and once it was sold to Viacom, Scientology kind of was weeded out. Because they purged the Scientology at that point. But, you know, they quit and they're like, okay, here's a list of projects that we wanted to complete. You know, this is unfinished business. And, you know, here you go, please finish them. Dad, they didn't even like look at that list. They were like, whatever, okay. And so there was always a lot of unfinished stuff on the site, you know, like the Neopet school never happened, or just like things on worlds of like a giant hole. What could it mean? We'll never know. Stuff like that.
There's just a mysterious giant hole, and it just stays a mysterious giant hole like forever.
Oh shit, what world was that in? But yeah, basically.
That's actually good.
Or like Lutari Island was like a big thing that could have been so much more. It was this island that they put, and it was supposed to be for mobile. Like if you had Neopets mobile, you could access Lutari, and that was the only way you could do it. And there was like a bunch of cool, fun stuff you can do on there, but they never launched it. But it was on the website map, and you know, for desktop, it was like shrouded in clouds, and they're like, I wonder what's over there. And you needed to get on mobile, but they never developed it. So it was just like, it's just like the framework and the scaffolding for all these cool things that like never happened because again, Viacom just wanted to like pillage it for money.
Yeah.
So they didn't actually care about completing all this stuff. They're like, whatever, kids just want to play the shitty Flash games and, you know, hang out with Ronald McDonald, I guess. So at this point in time, you know, about 2008, all the games, you know, the Flash games, especially the new ones, they were filled with ads. Some of the new games were just like 100% ad. There was this one game that was literally like you watch a commercial and then you get Neopoints. And that was it. You just watched a commercial. And, you know, it was still accruing a lot of money, but like all that money went towards other Viacom projects. They didn't actually invest it back into Neopets, and that's why it like looks like a relic from its times. They never changed it because they never put any money into it. The censorship filters were strict and buggy, so like, you know, you couldn't say swear words on the boards or whatever, but like the filters were broken, and so like you could like just be talking normal, not swearing, and then you get banned for like unknown reasons because you broke a rule that like was arbitrary or like was buggy or whatever. And so a lot of people were just getting randomly banned. And the customer service was also very bad. So if your account gets frozen, you're like submit a ticket being like, what happened? You'd never hear from them again. Your account was just gone.
Oh.
And that was a very common thing. You know, microtransactions, those suck. And then, like I said, being able to customize your pet meant that paintbrushes didn't really matter and the economy went to shit. Oh, this is a good one. So the day the chat filters broke. I don't know if you remember this, Eric. It was all over Tumblr.
What year was it? 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 2015 it said. Okay, yeah. Man,
Oh, it was 2014. That's my mistake. This
Okay.
should say 2014. But in April 2014, Viacom sold Neopets to Jumpstart, and they laid off most of the veteran staff, which pissed a lot of people off. Like, you know, you're laying off because the staff interacted with the users. And so, you know, they were like public figures and they're just like laid them all off. So that pissed a lot of people off. And then in June, it was over this weekend of June 27th and 28th in 2014, the Neopets chat filters broke. And so you can say anything. And so there's some good ones like, eat my homo butt, Kyle. What's the largest dick you've ever taken? About to start masturbating.
I really like that made it into the screenshot. Just says, I love each and every one of you.
Yeah. Good night one last time. So the fucking boards just like went off with like all this stuff. And what was really interesting about this event was that most of the perpetrators were old ass accounts, like decades old accounts, like from the OGs, and they were just really sick of what of Neopets has become. They didn't even bother making throwaway accounts to post eat my homo butt, Kyle. They were like 12-year-old accounts are like, we hate what has happened, we're just going to like flood this. Okay, so 2020, Flash is fucking dead. Starting this month, actually, Adobe killed Flash. They're not going to support it anymore, and that sucks for Neopets because it was an entirely Flash-based website and it never evolved. You know, most people don't use Flash anymore, but Neopets sure fucking does. 2 weeks ago or something, TNT said that it's going to convert all the Flash to HTML5, I guess. And so, like, you can only play like 4 games on the site right now. They made an even new web like homepage and it's worse than before. This was like a screen cap and you see there's like 4 different screens that slid. 3 of them were all about like, you know, shop at the NC Mall with your real money, or shop at Hot Topic with your real money, or like do like join us on Facebook. And so the takeaways of all this: Adam and Donna, they're creative types, but man, can they not run a fucking business to save their lives.
They're artists.
They're artists. They are, it's a very sad story. They were like from rags to riches to rags again. Oh my God. They, after Neopets tried to do several other endeavors, you know, to like, they did Meteor Games. They were going to make like a Facebook game. They all tanked. And then Scientology comes in. It caused a lot of internal mayhem. They sold the company to Viacom. And then upper management milks Neopets for every cent it can generate through bastardizing the site and exploiting children. And then the site didn't evolve with the times, and it's super buggy, but like, I know I'm nostalgic, but come on. The end.
I will say, I feel a tiny bit clickbaited by the Scientology thing. It wasn't like a huge part of it.
You know, and it really wasn't. It was all behind the scenes of like ruining it from the inside out. It never really made it into the site, but it was the catalyst because, you know, the org and like, you know, selling it to Viacom. So sure, yeah, like fucking Xenu didn't come down and like destroy the site personally, but they were like, it was the catalyst to its demise. I think that's kind of the thing about Scientology is that it doesn't get very, I mean, it's malicious and it's predatory and it's bad, but like it doesn't really ruin your life until you're already very deep into it. You know? So like if you skim the surface for a while, you know, you're probably fine. But then like as soon as you're like, you know, a Sea Org member or whatever, then your life is ruined. And so, you know, these were probably like Sea Org members as like the CEOs and like higher ups or whatever. And then all the other employees are like,